This May, homosexual and lesbian activists who live here in Minnesota will be able to travel to Massachusetts to have their same-sex relationships declared marriages by the state of Massachusetts. Upon returning here to Minnesota, they will be able to demand legal recognition through our state court system. And at that point, an activist judge could very well rule in their favor and then strike down Minnesota's current defense of marriage law. If we allow this to happen, group marriage, polygamy, and things much worse may not be far behind.
And God then called me to run for the United States Congress. And I thought, what in the world would that be for? And my husband said, you need to do this. And I wasn't so sure. And we took 3 days and we fasted and we prayed and we said, Lord, is this what you want? Is this your will? And after long about the afternoon of day 2, he made that calling sure. And it's been now 22 months that I've been running for United States Congress.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That would be like the flying nun here pretty soon.
Global warming is something that's talked a lot about and has been for the last probably 20 years. And I remember the covers of some of our news magazines, our weekly news magazines, that said that we were coming into an ice age. That was in the 1970s, and scientists felt that we were coming into global cooling, not global warming. Then scientists said we were going into global warming, and they backed off of that and then said we were going into global cooling. Now we're back into some scientists talking for global warming. I don't think that it has been established yet as a fact that global warming is the issue of the day. And I think that at this point, one thing that we need to do is look at the science.
But the Lord says, be submissive. Wives, you are be submissive to your husbands.
Congresswoman Michele Bachmann from Minnesota.
I think that the Obama campaign is very worried because Americans are just now starting to find out about Bill Ayers and about the questionable connection that Obama has with Bill Ayers. These are legitimate questions, and I think the Obama campaign has the right to be worried because they don't want the American people to know about these connections. I think it's devastating because this is an unrepentant terrorist who says he wishes he would have bombed more people, bombed the Pentagon, bombing Americans. Barack Obama didn't have a mild association with Bill Ayers. He had a very strong association with Bill Ayers. Calls into question what Barack Obama's true beliefs and values and thoughts are. His attitudes, values, and beliefs with Jeremiah Wright on his view of United States, which is negative. Bill Ayers, his negative view of United States. What is it that Barack Obama really believes? And we know that he's the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. Joe Biden is the third most liberal. Harry Reid, liberal. Nancy Pelosi, liberal.
You
have a troika of the most leftist, a leftist administration in the history of our country.
If you have liberal views, does that mean you have anti-American views? What's the connection? I don't get the connection.
Anti-American is the point. Because the liberals that are Jeremiah Wright and that are Bill Ayers, they're over-the-top anti-American, and that's the question that Americans have. Remember, it was Michelle Obama who said she's only recently proud of her country. And so these are very anti-American views. That's not the way that most Americans feel about our country. Most Americans, Chris, are wild about America, and they're very concerned to have a president who doesn't share those values.
Okay, you believe that Barack Obama you're suspicious because of this relationship, may have anti-American views. Otherwise, it's probably irrelevant to this discussion. So
absolutely.
You believe it brings into, so you believe that Barack Obama may have anti-American views?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very concerned that he may have anti-American views. That's what the American people are concerned about. That's why they want to know what his answers are. That's why Joe the plumber has figured so highly in the last few days. I think it's people who don't like America, who detest America.
What about people like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, the liberals you were mentioning a moment ago? Where would you put them? Would you consider them anti-American as well?
I would consider them to have far leftist views. I'm not going to say if they're anti-American or pro-American.
Well, you were putting them together. You put three words together: liberal, leftist, and anti-American. How do they all fit together? Those three terms: liberal, leftist and anti-American?
Well, that's a good descriptor for Jeremiah Wright. It's a perfect descriptor for Bill Ayers, and those are friends and people that Obama has pointed to as his mentors. Now, these are very strange anti-American mentors. Right. That's the real question about Barack Obama. Saul Alinsky, one of his teachers, you might say, out of the Chicago area. Tony Rezko, who was an associate also. These are very concerning figures that are in Barack Obama's
I thought Tony Rezko was some business guy. I didn't know he was a leftist anti-American guy.
That's troubling, too.
How many Congress people, members of Congress, do you think are in that anti-American crowd you described?
You'd have to ask them, Chris. I'm focusing on Barack Obama and the people that he's been associated with.
But do you suspect that a lot of people you serve with,
their anti-American nature?
Well, he's a United States Senator from Illinois. He's one of the people you suspect as being anti-American. How many people in the Congress of the United States do you think are anti-American? You've already suspected Barack Obama. Is he alone, or are there others? How many do you suspect of your colleagues as being anti-American?
What I would say is that the news media should do a penetrating expose and take a look. I wish they would. I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America? I think people would love to see an expose like that.
Okay, thank you very much. U.S. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann of Minnesota.
I may not always get my words right, but I know that my heart is right, because my heart is for you.
But no one looked more like a teenager meeting Justin Timberlake than newly elected Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. Watch her there on the right of the screen. She reaches out and grabs the president, gets her token kiss and a hug and an autograph, but that's just not enough. Look at her. She holds on and will not, for dear life, holds on for more than 30 seconds before finally freeing him from her death grip. It was a hilarious moment.
We have seen an orgy. The government spent its wad.
Now we've moved into the realm of gangster government. We have gangster government when the federal government has set up a new cartel, and private businesses now have to go begging with their hand out to their local, hopefully well politically connected congressman or their senator so they can buy a peace offering for that local business. Is that the kind of country we're going to have in the future?
We have our first repeat visitor to the Psychotalk Zone, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. Last week, the Minnesota Congresswoman did a little-noticed interview with the San Francisco radio station. Bachmann was asked about the incident back in 2006 involving 6 Muslim religious leaders who were taken off a U.S. Airways flight in Minneapolis. At the time, the New York Times wrote that the Muslim leaders were detained after complaints of suspicious behavior. The behavior included prayers at the gate and speaking in Arabic. First, let's listen to Bachmann's call when she was referring to them as flying imams.
We also were the site of the 6 flying imams.
Yes.
The imams were actually attending Congressman Keith Ellison's victory celebration when he won as a member of Congress.
Okay, stop right there, Congresswoman. That's a lie. Congressman Ellison, is this true?
This is not true. I think it could even be called psychotalk.
Now we're making progress. We got the Congress behind us.
And so now government is going to call evil good and good evil. And those who have succeeded now have to pay more to government. That's a moral issue.
And thank God for Joe Wilson. Thank God. He looks into the camera. Joe Wilson is my friend. He's the last person I talked to before I left Washington, D.C. The sweetest, most mild-mannered, loving guy you've ever seen, such a huge heart. And he apologized for violating the rules of decorum in the House. And that's right, we don't do that in the House. But Joe didn't back down from his assertion because Joe was right.
This is the crown jewel of socialism, this bill.
I know enough not to fight with a dump truck.
This is the short form that every American will get next year. Does the federal government really need to know our phone numbers? Do they really need to know, like you said, the date and time that we leave, mental stability? You know the one question that's not on this survey, Glenn? Are you a U.S. citizen?
We have to today make a covenant, slit our wrists, be blood brothers on this thing. This will not pass. We will do whatever it takes to make sure this doesn't pass.
From history, the United States government between 1942 and 1947 passed the Second War Powers Act. They used the U.S. Census information to round up the Japanese and put them in the internment camps. Okay. Americans were told that they wouldn't have their information used against them. They did. That's one of my goals in my bucket list before I die. I want to make sure I become a pilot.
It's the charge of the White Brigade! You ain't seen nothing yet, baby.
Edmund Burke was right when he said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Now is the time for all of us to act for the good of the next generation.